My child, stop scrolling for just a moment. Do not move away from these words, because something has shifted, and the person connected to your heart is carrying a message they can no longer keep inside. What you are about to hear was meant to find you at this exact moment. Not yesterday, when your thoughts were clouded. Not tomorrow, when the situation may already look different. Now. Something big has happened, and your soulmate needs to talk to you immediately. Pause here and breathe, because this is not about a meaningless conversation or a passing emotion. This is about a moment that changed the way they see you, the way they understand the distance between you, and the way they imagine what could happen next. There are words rising inside them that they have rehearsed in silence, yet every time they try to speak, their courage disappears. They know that once those words leave their mouth, nothing between you will feel ordinary again. Do not skip this message. There is something hidden beneath their urgency, and it is far more emotional than it first appears. Your soulmate did not wake up expecting this day to become important. They believed they could continue following the same routine, hiding behind the same calm expression, and convincing everyone around them that they had everything under control. But then something happened. A truth appeared where they could no longer avoid it. It came through a moment so simple that nobody else would have recognized its importance. A familiar place. An unexpected question. A name spoken at the wrong, or perhaps the perfect, time. For a few seconds, the entire room seemed to fade around them. They heard your name, and everything they had tried to bury rose to the surface at once. They remembered the way your presence once brought peace into their restless thoughts. They remembered conversations they pretended were not important, moments they replayed later when nobody was watching, and words from you that remained in their heart long after the conversation ended. They had told themselves they were moving forward. They had tried to believe that silence meant the connection was disappearing. But in that instant, they realized something they were not prepared to admit. Their feelings had not vanished. They had only gone deeper. Stay until the end, because this is where the story begins to turn. Your soulmate has been carrying two different versions of themselves. One is the version the world sees, the calm one, the practical one, the one who smiles and says everything is fine. The other appears when the noise ends and they are alone with the truth. That hidden version still wonders about you. Still checks the past for signs they may have missed. Still asks whether the connection between you was interrupted before it had the chance to become what it was meant to be. For a long time, fear kept them from reaching out. Not fear of you, but fear of what you might awaken inside them. They knew that speaking to you honestly would require them to remove every excuse. They would have to admit where they hesitated. They would have to acknowledge the moments when pride spoke louder than love. They would have to tell you why they pulled back when their heart wanted them to move closer. But something big just happened, and now the silence feels more dangerous to them than the truth. The event itself may not look dramatic from the outside, yet its meaning struck them like a sudden light in a dark room. Someone close to them asked a question they could not answer without thinking of you. The question was simple: if you could speak to one person without fear, who would it be? They tried to laugh. They tried to change the subject. But before they could control their reaction, your face appeared in their mind. Not vaguely. Not as a distant memory. Clearly. They saw the expression you carry when you are trying to stay strong. They remembered the softness in your voice when you cared more than you wanted to reveal. They remembered how you could understand the meaning behind their silence, even when they offered no explanation. And suddenly, the truth became impossible to deny. You were the person. You were the conversation unfinished inside their soul. Do not move away yet, because that was only the first revelation. Something else followed. Something that caused your soulmate to become unusually quiet. The person beside them noticed the change and asked whether they had ever truly told you what they felt. Your soulmate could not answer. They looked away, but the silence answered for them. That question opened a door they had kept locked for too long. They began remembering the exact moments when they almost told you the truth. The message they typed and deleted. The call they wanted to make but postponed. The apology that remained unspoken. The confession they disguised as a joke. The day they sensed you were waiting for honesty, yet they allowed uncertainty to stand between you. They now understand that you may have interpreted their silence as indifference. You may have believed they did not care enough to fight for the connection. But behind that silence was a storm of feelings they did not know how to manage. They were afraid of promising something they might not know how to protect. They were afraid you would see their imperfections and decide they were not the person you believed them to be. Most of all, they were afraid that the connection mattered so much that losing it would change them forever. And yet, by avoiding the truth, they created the very distance they feared. My child, something extraordinary is waiting inside this message. Your soulmate is beginning to see the cost of hesitation. They are realizing that time does not always preserve opportunities. Sometimes it quietly transforms them. Sometimes a person who once waited with an open heart begins learning how to live without answers. Sometimes silence teaches strength. And your soulmate has sensed that you are no longer standing in the same emotional place where they left you. This realization shook them. They have noticed a change in your energy. Even from a distance, they can feel that you have been rebuilding something within yourself. You are becoming less willing to chase explanations. Less willing to shrink your needs to keep someone comfortable. Less willing to accept confusion where honesty should exist. Your soulmate can sense that you are moving toward a new chapter. That is why the urgency has become so intense. They are not only afraid of losing access to you. They are afraid of losing the chance to show you who they could have been if they had chosen courage sooner. They know that you deserve clarity, not endless signals. You deserve consistency, not emotional guessing. You deserve a connection that does not require you to question your worth every night. And now they want to speak before your heart closes the door completely. But stay with me, because the biggest part has not yet been revealed. After that conversation, your soulmate went somewhere quiet. They needed to understand why your name had affected them so deeply. They sat alone and allowed memories to return without resistance. Some made them smile. Others made them lower their eyes with regret. They remembered one particular moment between you. A moment that seemed small when it happened, but now feels like a turning point. You said something honest to them. Perhaps it was a sentence about trust. Perhaps it was a quiet expression of care. Perhaps you asked them not to disappear emotionally when things became difficult. At the time, they heard the words, but they did not understand their weight. Now they do. They finally understand that you were not asking for perfection. You were asking for presence. You were not demanding promises. You were asking for truth. You were not trying to control their path. You were trying to discover whether the two of you were walking toward the same future. That realization brought a heaviness into their heart. They saw how often they misread your intentions. When you asked questions, they believed you were creating pressure. When you needed reassurance, they believed you were doubting them. When you became quiet, they assumed you were losing interest. But the truth was different. You were protecting a heart that had already felt the pain of uncertainty. Your soulmate now sees that your reactions were not signs of weakness. They were signs that the connection mattered to you. You were trying to understand whether it was safe to believe in what you felt. And they left too much unanswered. Do not skip, because what happened next changed the emotional direction of the entire day. Your soulmate opened an old conversation, looked at something connected to you, or came across a reminder they had avoided for a long time. It may have been a photograph, a saved message, a song, or even a simple phrase that belonged to a private memory between you. The moment they saw it, their defenses began to fall. They remembered how natural the connection once felt before fear complicated it. They remembered how quickly time passed when you spoke. They remembered the invisible comfort of knowing you existed somewhere in their world. They remembered that with you, they did not always have to explain every part of themselves. For the first time in a long while, they admitted something clearly. They miss you. Not only your voice. Not only your presence. They miss the version of themselves that appeared around you. The more honest version. The softer version. The version that believed a meaningful future might be possible. But their realization came with another truth, and this is the part that made them feel immediate urgency. They do not know whether you still feel the same.